FBI Director Cash Patel is making an announcement about the Minneapolis anti-ICE insurgency that has been revealed and exposed. Every domestic terrorist suspect connected to that group has now been identified. We're talking about 2,000 to 3,000 people, possibly more, from Minnesota, involved in this and trained to be part of the network. Cam Higbee blew the story wide open, showing how the left has been so effective at fighting ICE in Minneapolis. Have you wondered how these protesters can know exactly where federal agents are, where they're headed, how they're moving, and even where they're staying, which hotels? This is a full-blown low-level insurgency. They reportedly have a shadow, citizen-run intel service in Minneapolis, allegedly controlled by the state's lieutenant governor.
Take people to Fort Snelling here, which literally was built as a concentration camp, and Alligator Alcatraz, which I think we can all agree is a concentration camp. Not saying they're Dachau, I'm not saying they're putting people.
So last week, the Trump DOJ subpoenaed 6 Minnesota officials, including Governor Tim Walz, AG Keith Ellison, Mayor Jacob Frey, and others. Federal prosecutors were reportedly looking for information as part of an investigation into whether these Democrat officials obstructed or interfered with federal deportation operations. At the time, we assumed it was about Tim Walz's public comments. That's what we were told, that the subpoenas came from certain public statements he made, but it turns out it's far more serious. Late Saturday night, journalist Cam Higbee cracked this story wide open, going undercover into the center of this anti-ICE group, getting access to their organizational signal groups across the city, across Minneapolis, and identifying Peggy Flanagan, the state's lieutenant governor, as possibly one of the organizers. He says he did this with the sole purpose of tracking federal agents and impeding, assaulting, and obstructing them. That was the stated motivation he needed to gain access and get entry to the group. He writes that each part of the city has a signal group, and in some cases, multiple groups. He starts with a screen recording of all members of the Southside group. And we're talking, by the way, about a shadow police force with over 1,000 members. That's who's running Minneapolis right now. Higbee described spending several days undercover deep inside the anti-ICE command and control center, with full access to their signal groups that coordinate pressure campaigns against ICE. He notes that members use emojis to mark their specific roles and duties, including organizing mobile patrols that constantly search for suspected federal vehicles. They are trained, he says, using military-style manuals. For example, when a vehicle is flagged, the details are shared with designated plate checkers who somehow have access to a federal database to cross-reference the plate and confirm it's government-issued, though we can see that doesn't always work. He writes that dispatch runs a nonstop call all day, telling protesters where ICE has been spotted and how best to obstruct them. For each occupation or shift position, protesters have to complete training. Those are the more senior or more trusted roles. He also shows, he says, a screen recording of their plate database with links to an instruction manual, noting that this quasi-police force uses Salute, which is used in paramilitary operations. Look, they have command and control. They have dispatchers, real dispatchers like your local PD, working day and night, monitoring the entire city, organizing and directing their teams on the ground. This is full-on, low-level insurgency in action, the definition of an insurrection. And here's the kicker. Since Cam Higbee gained access, we've learned that one of the organizers, one of the leaders of this group, may be the lieutenant governor herself, possibly Peggy Flanagan. Members of the group are now running scared after being outed. One member asks, "What do we do now?" Another responds, "Run." "Run where?" he asks. "I don't know. Out of state. I'm leaving tonight. I don't know what's happening. We're in so much trouble," saying signal isn't secure. Once they figure out where we were, it's only a matter of time. Flan has been exposed. We're all effed. I need to leave the state. Should I leave too? Maybe it's best to get out of the country. Flan has been exposed, they say, with others pointing to Flanagan as well. Here's Peggy Flanagan herself talking about this group the other day. Watch.
Of Alexandria, where the event that we had that was similar to this one was interrupted by a bunch of phones going off and people having to leave because they are trained legal observers. Being trained legal observers, I don't know if anybody's gone through that training here. If you have, I appreciate it and would encourage you to do so.
Our neighbors are being disappeared. P.S. Without due process, it is just called kidnapping. Then show up and use your voice. Put your body on the line and
This is what those DOJ subpoenas from last week were actually about, it turns out. The FBI is now investigating whether any of these Democrats are helping, or have been helping, organize, orchestrate, or lead this anti-ICE resistance. Kash Patel says the FBI is investigating Signalgate and its ties to the Walz administration. Watch.
So this is breaking news. So you and the FBI and perhaps other intelligence agencies are fully aware of this coordinated effort to attack federal law enforcement, to impede them and potentially insurrect. And so there is now an open investigation into these chats and into this coordinated network.
Yeah,
some of them are fleeing. Some of them are very scared now. You can see their chats. They're very, very worried now that they have been exposed.
Well, they should be. If they broke the law, you should be worried. It's that simple. If you didn't break the law, there's really nothing to worry about on that front. And so, we're going to continue, as I've said from day one, we will protect law enforcement. We will make sure they have the security and safety to do their jobs. We will also ensure that civilians have the ultimate protection of the First and Second Amendment. But it is my job to adjudicate the difference when there is a breaking of federal statute or state law in the furtherance of a crime or violence against law enforcement officers. And that's when we step in.
This looks like a full-scale insurrection. What does that word even mean, insurrection? It's defined as a violent uprising against an authority or a government. That's what this is. And it's terrifying because this group is so well organized and well funded. They have thousands of trained members. They have access to police databases. They have a full-blown intel network, one so effective it rivals our own DHS. They're better than our own Department of Homeland Security. Think about that. They know where our federal agents are at all times and where they're going. No ICE agent can move around the city without people showing up the moment they step out of the vehicle. Last night, they attacked the hotel where ICE was staying, and Minneapolis PD was pulled back, told to stand down.
Were you ever ordered to stand down? Have police been told not to protect ICE?
It is deeply disappointing to have anyone question and disparage the hard work of the men and women of the Minneapolis Police Department. There are 600 police officers that are left here after the destruction of the city in 2020, and they are doing an incredible job. About a dozen of our cops have been injured responding to a lot of the chaos that has resulted on the streets. Our officers respond every time there's a threat to someone's life, to public safety, or destruction in the city. And it doesn't matter whether it's because ICE is there or someone from the community is there. We are doing everything that we can to manage this chaos, but there's only 600 cops here, and there's thousands of immigration agents here.
Special Forces operator Eric Schwamm went viral on X last night, describing what we're truly seeing in Minneapolis. I'm not going to read his entire post, but it's a very interesting perspective. He writes, as a former Special Forces warrant officer with multiple rotations running counterinsurgency ops, both hunting insurgents and trying to separate them from sympathetic populations, I've seen organized resistance up close from Anbar to Helmand. The pattern is familiar. Spotters, cutouts, dead drops, disciplined comms, role specialization, and a willingness to absorb casualties while slowly bleeding the stronger force. DHS. What's unfolding in Minneapolis right now is not protest. It's low-level insurgency infrastructure built by people who have clearly studied the playbook. That's a strong point. Who is funding all of this? Who is organizing it? You expect us to believe all of this appeared in just a few weeks. Signal groups capped at 1,000 members per zone, dedicated roles, mobile chasers, plate checkers, logging vehicle data into shared databases, 24/7 dispatch nodes vectoring assets, salute-style reporting, size, activity, location, unit, time, equipment on suspected federal vehicles, daily chat rotations, and time deletions to frustrate forensic recovery, vetting processes for new joiners, mutual aid from sympathetic locals like teachers providing cover, possible PD tip-offs on license plate lookups, home-based coordination points, rapid escalation from observation to physical obstruction or worse. He says this isn't spontaneous outrage. This is command and control with redundancy, operational security hygiene, and task organization that would make a Special Forces team sergeant take notice. Replace ICE agents with occupying coalition forces, and the structure maps almost one-to-one to early-stage urban cells we hunted in the mid-2000s. He goes on to say the most sobering part is it's domestic, funded, trained somewhere, and directed by people who live in the same country they're trying to paralyze law enforcement in. When your own citizens build and operate this level of parallel intel and rapid response network against federal officers, complete with doxing, vehicle pursuits, and harassment that has already turned lethal, you're no longer dealing with civil disobedience. You're facing a distributed resistance that has learned the lessons of successful insurgency. Stay below the kinetic threshold most of the time, force overreaction when possible, maintain popular support through narrative, and never present a single center of gravity. This makes January 6th look like child's play. And the scariest part is that even if the FBI sweeps in like they should, like they did after J6, and arrests all these people, I'm not sure they'd even be prosecuted. We keep seeing judges and even juries and grand juries side with these people like we saw with Jim Comey, but we have to try. If we just act like this is protesting as usual, ordinary civil disobedience, it will spread. The organization will spread to other cities. The organization will harden and become more permanent. And we're already seeing conservatives, even Fox News, getting taken in by this, saying we need to back off, asking the administration what it's going to do to de-escalate the situation, and maybe pull ICE out of Minneapolis.